The vast observation deck of the Valaxian flagship Eternal Dawn fell silent as Admiral Zextal watched the holographic display with growing disdain. Before him floated the image of humanity's most advanced vessel, the TNS Artemis. At barely 200 meters in length, it looked like a child's toy compared to his 3-kilometer warship. "These are their finest ships," he rumbled, his scaled skin shifting through shades of amber in what his officers recognized as amusement. "I've seen larger maintenance vessels." Commander Ira Chen of the Terran Naval Forces kept her expression neutral, though her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She stood before the assembled Valaxian leadership, her crisp blue uniform a stark contrast against their shimmering biomechanical suits. The environmental controls might have been set to Earth-standard conditions, but the atmosphere felt suffocating. "Size isn't everything, Admiral," Chen replied evenly. "The Artemis-class vessels represent the pinnacle of human efficiency and innovation." A ripple of clicking sounds, the Valaxian equivalent of laughter, spread through the observation deck. Admiral Zextal's secondary eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of dismissal in their culture. "Efficiency." He pronounced the word as if it tasted bitter. "Your species has barely mastered quantum-slipped space travel. Your ships lack proper ceremonial ornamentation. They're practically invisible to our sensors due to their diminutive nature." He gestured with one of his 4 arms at the hologram. "This is not efficiency, Commander. This is limitation masquerading as choice." Chen had expected this reaction. The Valaxian Empire had dominated this sector of space for millennia, their massive ships serving as both military vessels and displays of cultural superiority. Every surface was adorned with intricate patterns that doubled as computational circuits, every weapon system housed in towers that resembled organic crystal growth. They measured civilization by volume, both in terms of space occupied and resources consumed. "Perhaps a demonstration would help illustrate our capabilities," Chen suggested, nodding to her aide. The holographic display shifted, showing the Artemis in action during recent training exercises. The ship moved with impossible grace, its revolutionary quantum thrust system allowing it to change vectors instantly without the lengthy turning radius required by larger vessels. Its smart metal hull rippled and adapted to different combat scenarios, transforming from a sleek reconnaissance profile to a bristling weapons platform in seconds. Admiral Zextal's primary eyes narrowed. "Interesting toys," he conceded, "but ultimately insignificant. A single shot from our primary lance would vaporize such a vessel." "You'd have to hit us first," Chen replied, immediately regretting the slip in diplomacy. But the Admiral's patronizing tone had worn through her patience. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as Zextal rose to his full height of nearly 3 meters. His skin flushed deep crimson, a warning sign. "You forget your place, Commander," he said softly, dangerously. "We came to your system out of courtesy, to formally evaluate humanity's petition to join the Galactic Conclave. But perhaps we should be discussing protection treaties instead. After all, there are many dangerous elements in this sector of space. It would be unfortunate if something were to happen to your vulnerable colonies." Chen felt her blood run cold at the thinly veiled threat, but years of tactical training kept her voice steady. "We appreciate the Valaxian Empire's concern for our safety, Admiral. However, Earth and her colonies are quite capable of defending themselves." "Are they?" Zextal's secondary eyes blinked in rapid sequence again. "Your entire fleet consists of what? A few hundred of these tiny vessels. Our empirical databases suggest you would need ships at least 8 times this sized to mount effective defensive platforms." "Your databases may need updating," Chen replied diplomatically. "We find that contemporary warfare often favors mobility and precision over sheer mass." The Admiral made a dismissive gesture with his lower arms. "Theories posed by those who lack the ability to build proper warships, but let us not waste more time on military matters. You are here to petition for membership in the Conclave. Our evaluation will be thorough, As Chen left the observation deck, she caught snippets of conversation from the Valaxian officers, their universal translators apparently off. Such primitive design philosophy. They think small means efficient. Perhaps we should show them true power. Back aboard the Artemis, Chen immediately called the secure conference with Earth Command. The quantum entanglement communicator ensured absolute privacy, one of many innovations the Valaxians had dismissed as impossible for primitive human technology. They're planning something, she reported to the assembled holographic faces of Earth's military leadership. The entire diplomatic mission was a facade. They weren't evaluating us for membership. They were assessing us as a potential conquest. Admiral Sarah Martinez, commander of Earth's Combined Defense Forces, leaned forward. "Are you certain, Commander?" "Without doubt, sir. Their body language, their dismissal of our technology. They're following a pattern we've seen in their historical records. Every species they've protected has eventually been absorbed into their empire." "Then we proceed with Operation Lighthouse," Martins decided. "You have your orders, Commander. Make the Valaxians believe exactly what they want to believe." Chen smiled grimly. "That we're primitive, vulnerable, and grossly outmatched." "Exactly. Let them think our small ships are a sign of technological limitation. Let them laugh at our tiny fleet." Martinez's expression hardened. "They'll learn soon enough why humanity chose efficiency over excess." As the conference ended, Chen walked to the Artemis observation window. The massive Valaxian flagship hung in space like a glittering mountain, its ornate surfaces catching the light of distant stars. Beautiful, impressive, and hopelessly oversized for modern combat. The Valaxians had spent millennia perfecting the art of grandiose warfare, building ever larger ships to demonstrate their superiority. They'd never faced an enemy that thought differently, never encountered a species that had evolved on a death world, where efficiency and adaptation meant survival. They looked at the Artemis and saw a tiny primitive vessel. They didn't see the quantum computation systems woven into every molecule of its smart metal hull, didn't understand that its small size was precisely what allowed it to exploit quantum effects that would be impossible in larger ships, didn't realize that every human vessel was a technological masterpiece, compressed and refined until no space was wasted. The Valaxians thought they were being clever, hiding their hostile intentions behind diplomatic double-talk. They didn't know that humanity had broken their encryption months ago, that every seemingly primitive human ship was recording and analyzing their every move. Let them laugh at the tiny fleet, Chen thought. Let them underestimate us. After all, humanity had learned long ago that the deadliest predators weren't always the largest. "Navigation," she called out. "Plot a course back to Earth. Let's show our guests exactly what they expect to see, a primitive species doing its best to impress its betters." As the Artemis quantum drive spooled up, Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Valaxians were about to learn a lesson that countless others had learned throughout human history. Never mistake efficiency for weakness, and never ever underestimate humanity's capacity for innovation. The game was set. Now they just had to wait for the Valaxians to make their move. And when they did, they would learn why humanity's ships were small by choice, not necessity. Deep within the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, humanity's true fleet took shape in the shadows. Hidden shipyards, carved into the hearts of massive asteroids, hummed with activity as Earth prepared for the inevitable conflict. Commander Chen stood in the central control room of Operation Lighthouse, watching as holographic displays showed the progress of their secret preparations. "Status report," she called out to the assembled team leaders. The room, carved from solid rock and shielded from all known forms of detection, represented humanity's answer to Valaxian arrogance. Dr. Maya Patel, head of the Quantum Integration Division, stepped forward. Her dark eyes gleamed with barely contained excitement. "The quantum mesh upgrades are complete on the first 100 vessels. Each ship can now function as both an individual combat unit and part of a larger quantum-entangled network." Chen nodded, remembering the dismissive looks of the Valaxian officers when they'd seen the size of Earth's ships. If they only knew that each vessel was essentially a node in a vast, interconnected neural network, capable of responding to threats with collective intelligence. The Valaxians are still watching our decoy shipyards near Luna, reported Colonel Jack Harper, head of counterintelligence. His weathered face cracked into a smile. They're completely convinced we're scrambling to build bigger ships to impress them. Their latest diplomatic message practically drips with condescension. Perfect, Chen replied. And the new defensive systems? Dr. Sarah Wong, Chief of Weapons Development, brought up a detailed hologram of their latest innovation. The quantum phase shields are ready for deployment. The Valaxians rely on brute force energy weapons, what we call their lance technology. Our shields don't try to block their attacks directly. Instead, they shift our ships partially out of phase with normal spacetime. Their energy weapons will quite literally pass right through us. The room fell silent as they contemplated this. Humanity had taken a radically different approach to space warfare. While the Valaxians built ever larger ships with increasingly powerful weapons, Earth had focused on understanding and manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Time frame for full fleet readiness? Chen asked. 3 weeks, Harper replied. The Valaxians are planning their protective intervention in 4. They're gathering a massive fleet near the Arcturus waypoint. Traditional intelligence suggests they're bringing enough firepower to crack a small moon. Chen smiled grimly. They're preparing to swat a fly with a sledgehammer. They still think quantity of force is what matters. She turned to address the entire room. What they don't understand is that humanity stopped playing that game centuries ago. We learned on Earth that the most successful species aren't always the biggest or strongest. They're the ones that adapt. Dr. Paddle brought up another hologram, this one showing the intricate quantum circuitry that ran through every human vessel. The real beauty of our design philosophy is its scalability. Each ship's AI can operate independently, but they're also designed to work in perfect synchronization. The more ships the Valaxians bring, the more data our quantum network will have to analyze and counter their tactics. Speaking of tactics, Colonel Harper interjected, the simulation teams have been running scenarios around the clock. The Valaxians have used the same basic battle strategies for over 300 years. They rely on overwhelming force and expect their enemies to either match their firepower or be destroyed. Chen watched as he brought up tactical displays showing the predicted Valaxian attack patterns. They'll come in with their dreadnoughts in a standard spear formation. Their entire tactical doctrine is based on the assumption that bigger ships with bigger guns win space battles, which is exactly why they'll lose, Dr. Wong added. Our ships aren't just small. They're designed to exploit quantum scale effects that become impossible in larger vessels. The very laws of physics that they think limit us actually give us advantages they can't match. A junior officer rushed into the room, tablet in hand. Commander, we're detecting increased activity in the Valaxian fleet. They're conducting what appears to be combat drills near Saturn's orbit. Chen studied the new data as it appeared on the main display. The Valaxian ships moved through space like floating mountains, their formations rigid and predictable. Every maneuver screamed of arrogance. They weren't even trying to hide their intentions. Let them practice, she said quietly. Every second they spend preparing to fight a conventional war is another second we have to prepare our unconventional response. She turned to her team leaders. Humanity has spent its entire history adapting to overcome seemingly impossible odds. We survived on a death world where everything from microscopic bacteria to massive predators tried to kill us. We faced extinction-level events and emerged stronger. Now we face an alien empire that thinks size and brute force are all that matter in warfare. The room was silent as she continued. They look at our ships and see toys. They look at our technology and see primitives playing with forces we don't understand. They look at humanity and see an easy conquest. Her expression hardened. They're about to learn why that's a fatal mistake. All teams, accelerate your schedules. I want every ship ready for quantum mesh integration in 2 weeks. The Valaxians think they're being clever, preparing their surprise attack. Let's make sure we have a few surprises of our own ready. As the meeting broke up, Chen stayed behind, studying the tactical displays. The Valaxian fleet near Saturn was impressive. Their smallest support ships were larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons could reduce planets to ash. Their armor could withstand impacts that would shatter moons. And none of that would matter. Because while they'd spent millennia perfecting the art of overwhelming force, humanity had learned something far more important: the art of fighting smarter, not bigger. The Valaxians were about to learn that sometimes the deadliest force in the universe isn't the one you can see coming. The Valaxian attack began exactly as predicted. Their massive fleet dropped out of quantum slit space in perfect formation, a wall of gleaming metal stretching across the void between Earth and Mars. Admiral Zextal's flagship, the Eternal Dawn, led the charge, its crystalline weapon arrays already charging with enough energy to shatter a small moon. Commander Chen watched from the bridge of the TNS Artemis, her expression calm despite the apocalyptic display of force before her. All ships, maintain position. Let them think we're paralyzed with fear. Earth's visible defense fleet, barely 50 ships, hung in high orbit, appearing small and vulnerable against the backdrop of their home world. The Valaxian communication channels crackled to life. "Attention, primitive vessels." Admiral Zextal's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Your species has demonstrated its inability to properly govern itself. The Valaxian Empire hereby assumes protective custody of your world and colonies. Power down your toys and prepare for boarding." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Signal the Admiral," she ordered. "Priority channel." The massive alien's face appeared on her view screen, his scales shifting through patterns of smug satisfaction. "Have you come to surrender, Commander?" "Actually, Admiral, I thought you might want to see something interesting." Chen nodded to her tactical officer. "Initiate Operation Firefly." Across the solar system, space itself seemed to ripple. From within the asteroid belt, from the shadow of Mars' moons, from clouds of apparently innocent debris, hundreds of human ships shimmered into visible existence. Each vessel was small, agile, and connected to every other through the quantum mesh network. Zextal's secondary eyes blinked rapidly. "More tiny ships. This is your response to our might. You dare tow." "Now," Chen commanded. The human fleet moved as one organism, their quantum-linked AIs coordinating with impossible precision. Before the Valaxian sensors could even track the movement, the first wave of Earth ships had already penetrated their formation. "Impossible," Zextal roared as damage reports flooded his command center. "Their weapons shouldn't be able to." "Quantum phase torpedoes," Chen explained calmly as she watched human ships dart between the massive Valaxian vessels like schools of fish around whales. "They bypass your shields by shifting partially out of normal spacetime. Quite effective against ships that rely on brute force defenses." The Valaxian fleet tried to respond, their massive weapons charging to fire. But the human ships moved too quickly, their synchronized maneuvers guided by the quantum mesh network that linked their AIs. Each vessel knew exactly where every other ship would be at any given moment, allowing them to execute combat maneuvers that would have been impossible for individual pilots. "Formation Hydra," Chen ordered, and the human fleet split into dozens of smaller attack groups. Each group targeted a Valaxian ship, swarming around it like angry hornets. The aliens' point defense systems, designed to track and engage large targets, couldn't lock onto the rapidly moving human vessels. "You think these pinpricks can harm our mighty ships?" Zextal snarled, even as another explosion rocked his flagship. "We will crush your pathetic fleet." "Your ships are impressive, Admiral," Chen agreed. "Unfortunately, they're also predictable. We've spent months analyzing your tactical doctrine. Did you know you haven't significantly changed your combat formations in over 3 centuries?" As if to prove her point, 3 Valaxian cruisers moved to protect their flagship's flanks, exactly as humanity's combat simulations had predicted. The human ships were already moving to exploit the gap this created in their defense screen. Target their weapon arrays, Chen commanded. Show them why bigger isn't always better. The quantum mesh network calculated optimal firing solutions faster than any organic mind could process. Human ships struck from multiple angles simultaneously, their phased torpedoes bypassing the Valaxians' elaborate defenses to strike critical systems. One of the Valaxian cruisers went dark as its main power core was breached. Another spun out of formation, its weapon arrays transformed into molten slag. The mighty alien ships, each one large enough to house a small city, found themselves being systematically dismantled by vessels they had dismissed as toys. This is impossible. Zextal's scales had shifted to a pale yellow, a sign of fear in his species. Our tactical databases, our superior technology. Your databases are outdated, Admiral, Chen replied. And technology isn't about size. It's about understanding. While you were building bigger ships, we were learning to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe itself. The battle continued to unfold like a deadly dance. Human ships phased in and out of normal space, striking with surgical precision before seeming to vanish. The Valaxian fleet's rigid formation began to break apart as ships tried to target the elusive attackers. Your problem, Admiral, Chen continued, watching as another Valaxian dreadnought lost power, is that you assumed bigger meant better. You never stopped to consider that there might be advantages to being small. Your massive ships can't execute the kinds of maneuvers we can. Your weapons can't track targets our size effectively. You built your entire military doctrine around overwhelming force and never considered what might happen if someone refused to play by those rules. The Eternal Dawn shuddered as multiple quantum phase torpedoes struck its command center. Zextal's image flickered on Chen's view screen. This isn't warfare, the alien commander protested. This is adaptation, Admiral. Something humanity has always excelled at. You thought our small ships were a sign of technological limitation. The truth is, we could have built vessels as large as yours. We chose not to, because we found a better way. Around the Eternal Dawn, the battle was turning into a rout. The Valaxian fleet's formation had completely collapsed, their ships firing desperately at shadows, while human vessels struck with impunity. Their mighty weapons, capable of reducing planets to ash, proved useless against targets they couldn't hit. Chen watched as the mighty alien armada, which had set out to conquer Earth with such confidence, began to retreat in disarray. Sometimes, Admiral, she said softly, the most dangerous predator isn't the largest. It's the one that learned to hunt smarter, not bigger. The solar system had become a hunting ground, but not in the way the Valaxians had intended. 2 days after their disastrous first engagement, the remnants of their mighty fleet found themselves in an unfamiliar position, as prey rather than predators. Admiral Zextal's command center aboard the Eternal Dawn was no longer the picture of confident superiority it had been days ago. Emergency lights cast an eerie glow over damaged systems, and the ship's quantum communications array crackled with desperate messages from scattered Valaxian vessels. Another cruiser lost contact in the Jovian sector. His tactical officer reported, scales shifting to a sickly gray. The humans, they're everywhere and nowhere. Our sensors can't track them consistently. Zextal gripped his command podium with all 4 arms. Impossible. They're using some kind of deception. No species could develop phase shift technology this advanced without us knowing about it. On the bridge of the TNS Artemis, Commander Chen coordinated humanity's hunt. The quantum mesh network had expanded to encompass the entire solar system, turning space itself into humanity's ally. Each human ship acted as both hunter and sensor node, sharing tactical data across the network with quantum-encrypted precision. Status of Operation Snare, she asked, watching the tactical display where red dots representing Valaxian ships continued to vanish from their sensors. Dr. Maya Patel, now serving as tactical advisor, smiled. The quantum net is complete. Every time they try to use their slip space drives, our network predicts their exit points with 99.9% accuracy. They're trapped in normal space, and that's exactly where we want them. The human fleet had evolved its tactics beyond even their initial success. Ships now operated in what they called ghost wolf formations, groups of 5 vessels working in perfect synchronization, their quantum-linked AIs calculating combat maneuvers that would have been impossible for organic pilots. Incoming transmission, the comm officer announced. It's Admiral Zextal. Chen nodded. Put him through. The Valaxian admiral's image appeared, his once pristine command center now showing obvious battle damage. Commander Chen, he began, his voice lacking its former arrogance, we demand you cease these cowardly tactics. Face us in proper combat. Proper combat? Chen raised an eyebrow. You mean like your surprise attack on what you thought was a defenseless world? Or perhaps you'd prefer we build oversized ships and line them up for your weapons to target? You're not fighting according to any recognized doctrine of warfare. That's exactly the point, Admiral. Humanity learned long ago that following your enemy's rulebook is a quick way to lose a fight. She gestured to the tactical display. Your fleet is trapped in our solar system, being systematically dismantled by ships you dismissed as toys. Perhaps it's time to reconsider your position. Before Zextal could respond, alarms blared through his command center. Multiple human ships detected. His tactical officer shouted, they're using some kind of quantum tunneling effect, bypassing our outer defenses. Chen watched with satisfaction as another ghost wolf pack demonstrated humanity's latest innovation. The 5 ships seemed to phase through solid matter, appearing inside the Valaxian defensive formation. Their quantum phase torpedoes struck with surgical precision, targeting key systems before the massive alien vessels could respond. You see, Admiral, Chen continued conversationally, while you were building bigger ships with bigger guns, we were learning to manipulate space-time itself. Your sensors can't track us because we're rarely fully in normal space. Your weapons can't hit us because we can phase shift faster than your targeting systems can adjust. And your tactics, she shook her head. Your tactics haven't evolved in centuries. The Eternal Dawn shuddered as another ghost wolf pack struck from an impossible angle. Your kind, Zextal growled. You're supposed to be primitive. Your ships are tiny. Your weapons shouldn't be capable of this. Size isn't everything, Chen replied, echoing her words from their first meeting. Humanity evolved on a death world. Admiral, we learned to adapt or die. When we reached the stars, we applied those same principles. Every human ship is a masterpiece of efficiency, carrying more advanced technology in its small frame than your entire dreadnought. The tactical display told the story. The mighty Valaxian fleet, which had arrived with such overwhelming force, was being methodically hunted down. Their rigid formations and predictable tactics made them easy prey for humanity's quantum-linked wolf packs. Look at your tactical display, Admiral, Chen suggested. Your fleet formations are fractured. Your ships can't coordinate effectively because our quantum interference is disrupting your communications. You're fighting blind while we can see everything. Around the solar system, the hunt continued. Human ships slipped through space like digital ghosts, striking with impossible precision before vanishing again. The Valaxians' mighty weapons fired uselessly at sensor ghosts and false readings, while their actual attackers struck from completely unexpected vectors. This is your final chance. Admiral, Chen said firmly. You can surrender now, and we can discuss terms that don't involve the protective custody of Earth. Or you can continue this fight, and we will continue to demonstrate why humanity's approach to warfare has made your entire tactical doctrine obsolete. The Eternal Dawn's bridge fell silent as Zextal faced the choice before him. Around his flagship, more Valaxian vessels were going dark, their mighty bulk now nothing more than expensive monuments to an outdated philosophy of warfare. The quantum mesh network hummed with data as humanity's ships continued their relentless hunt. They had become something the Valaxians had never encountered before, a fluid, adaptive force that turned the very laws of physics into weapons. Each small ship was a deadly combination of human ingenuity and advanced technology, working in perfect concert with its fellows to dismantle an empire's worth of military doctrine. The hunter had become the hunted, and the galaxy would never be the same. The conference chamber aboard the International Space Station had been specially modified for this historic moment. Admiral Zextal's massive frame seemed somehow diminished as he sat across from Commander Chen and the assembled human leadership. Through the station's viewport, the remnants of his once mighty fleet hung motionless in Earth orbit, proud vessels now humbled by a force they'd fatally underestimated. "The terms are non-negotiable," Chen stated, her voice firm but not unkind. "The Valaxian Empire will acknowledge Earth's sovereignty and our right to defend our space as we see fit. In return, we're willing to share some of our technological innovations, particularly in the field of ship efficiency and miniaturization." Zextal's scales shifted through patterns of barely contained emotion. "You speak of sharing technology, yet your ships have reduced our finest vessels to floating debris. Why should we trust your intentions when you've demonstrated such devastating capability?" Admiral Sarah Martinez, speaking for Earth's combined defense forces, leaned forward. "Because, Admiral, humanity has no interest in empire building. We defended ourselves when threatened, but our goal has always been peaceful coexistence and mutual advancement." Peaceful. Zextal's secondary eyes blinked rapidly. "Your quantum phase weapons cut through our finest shields like they didn't exist. Your ships move in ways that defy conventional physics. You turned our own tactical doctrine against us. And yet," Chen pointed out quietly, "we didn't destroy your fleet when we had the chance. Every strike was precisely calculated to disable, not destroy. Check your casualty reports, Admiral. You'll find them remarkably low for such a decisive defeat." The alien commander fell silent, processing this truth. His mighty fleet had been systematically dismantled, but the humans had shown remarkable restraint. They had proven their superiority not just in technology and tactics, but in mercy as well. Dr. Maya Patel stepped forward, activating a holographic display. "What we're offering is a genuine technological exchange. Your empire has achieved remarkable things with large-scale engineering. Combined with our advances in quantum mechanics and miniaturization, both our species could benefit." The display showed a theoretical hybrid design, a Valaxian ship incorporating human quantum technology. It maintained the impressive presence the Valaxians valued while achieving levels of efficiency they had thought impossible. "Your empire has ruled this sector for millennia," Chen continued. "You've achieved greatness through size and power. But there are other paths to advancement. Humanity chose to perfect the small, to master efficiency over excess. Both approaches have merit. Imagine what we could achieve by combining them." Outside the viewport, a demonstration of this potential was taking place. A human ghost wolf pack maneuvered around one of the damaged Valaxian cruisers, using their quantum technology to effect repairs that would have taken months using conventional methods. "Your ships," Zextal admitted slowly, "they're not primitive at all, are they? We were so focused on their size, we failed to understand their true nature." "A common mistake," Martinez smiled. "Throughout human history, we've learned that appearances can be deceiving. Our ships are small because that's what makes them most effective. We focused on understanding the fundamental forces of the universe rather than trying to overpower them." "And now," Zextal asked, "what becomes of our empire, our place in the galaxy?" "That's up to you," Chen replied. "We're not interested in conquering or subjugating anyone. What we're proposing is a genuine partnership, your empire's experience combined with humanity's innovation. Together, we could advance both our civilizations in ways neither could achieve alone." The Admiral's scales shifted to a deep blue, a color of thoughtful consideration. "And if we refuse? Then we go our separate ways," Martine stated simply. "Earth will defend its territory. but we won't seek expansion or conflict. Though I think you understand that attempting another military solution would be unwise." Zextal was silent for a long moment, watching the human ships continue their repair work on his fleet. Their precise movements, their perfect coordination, their mastery of forces his people had barely begun to understand, all contained in vessels his kind had dismissed as toys. "We have much to learn from each other," he finally said. "The Valaxian Empire has grown complacent in its power. Perhaps it's time for us to remember what it means to adapt and grow." Chen extended her hand, a human gesture of agreement that had been explained to the admiral. After a moment's hesitation, he reached out with one of his 4 arms to accept it. "Welcome to a new era, Admiral," she said warmly. "One where the size of a ship matters far less than the innovation of its builders and the wisdom of its commanders." As the formal treaty negotiations began, Chen stepped to the viewport. The Earth hung beautiful and blue below them, while in orbit, human and Valaxian ships worked together to repair the damage of their brief but decisive conflict. It was a powerful symbol of what could be achieved when advanced technology was guided by wisdom rather than pride. The Valaxians had come expecting to find primitives playing at spaceflight. Instead, they had discovered that true advancement wasn't always visible at first glance. They had learned, at considerable cost, that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in the size of their ships or the power of their weapons, but in their endless capacity to innovate, adapt, and overcome. As Chen watched a ghost wolf pack demonstrate their quantum phase technology to amazed Valaxian engineers, she smiled. The galaxy was about to change, not through force of arms or size of ships, but through the combination of different perspectives and the sharing of knowledge. The Valaxians were learning that sometimes the smallest vessels could carry the greatest potential for advancement. And humanity. They had proven once again that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't size or strength, but the ability to adapt and evolve. Their tiny fleet had changed the balance of power in the galaxy not through overwhelming force, but through the precise application of advanced technology and innovative thinking. The future that stretched before them was bright with possibility. A future where size and power were no longer the measure of advancement, and where cooperation could achieve what conflict never could.